Hi, I'm Sharon Landon, and welcome to Old Asian Lady. Today, my guest is Michelle Gao. She is an art teacher and alumni at an American school in Taipei. We chat about her creative arts journey as a songwriter, singer, actor, and artist, and how important these mediums of expression are to her. Michelle also shares her thoughts about intercultural marriage, motherhood, and balancing life, work, and family.
But when I first got to Taiwan, like in Hsinchu, I went to this bilingual school and they said, we don't really need art teachers that speak English, but we need, you speak English, so can you be a foreign teacher at the school? And I was teaching like first, second graders, and I realized really quickly, like, that is not my age range.
Right.
Yeah. But I was really lucky within, 3 years, there was an opening for a high school position. And I knew that like high school, I think it's just such formative years.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a really strong kind of connection with me as a high schooler,
Mm-hmm.
that like that was a good age range to teach art to. Yeah.
Yeah, so speaking of art, because you're supposed to be, what do they say? Or what you say is you're an obsessive creative. What is it that you say?
I am an obsessive creative.
Creator.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so just hearing all the things that you've been talking about, your past experiences, how you started loving art and that, when you're saying obsessive, what does that mean?
It's like flow. Like when you start doing art, you just don't want to do anything else, right? When you get into the flow of something. And I would say obsessive also in the sense of just wanting to experience lots of different kinds of art. So I still do performing arts and I still do my visual arts. Mm-hmm. And I would say I'm like kind of like semi-pro in all these different areas, and for acting, honestly, at the time in high school, I might not have treated it with as much respect or I was just so down on myself at the time that it wasn't until, these past 5-6 years that like through this one play experience, right, at the lab, and then
tape, right?
Yeah. And then doing the Meisner class, that it's like, you know what? Actually, I can be an Asian female actress. And I think at the time, I was like, maybe I didn't have enough role models. Maybe I didn't have just the confidence or enough, the support around that to take it seriously. So even if I was like a lead in a musical, it's like, okay, cool, that's like me doing a hobby,
Yeah. Art, visual arts and performance arts. Out of all of those things that you do in your creative life, which one is it that you most feel comfortable with or most identify, or is there one?
I think acting is one that really brings me to life. Like, Martin's golden words.
Yeah.
And it's one that I feel like I can thrive and still have a lot to learn in.
Yeah.
I think with visual arts, it's like it's very personal and it's almost journalistic. And with singing and songwriting, it's like a fun hobby, but I know that like I haven't put in the hours to become really good, and like I need a lot of support. But so I would say like for acting, that's currently, like a really fun and lasting creative passion that I feel really happy that in Taipei we now have, so much opportunities to keep practicing.
Yeah.
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 Maybe not being the star of every show,
Yeah.
but just being involved in the community and to keep learning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because you've done a lot of projects in the last few years or
Yeah.
since I've known you. So that's really good. And
Can we talk about like how we met? Do you remember?
Let me see. Was it at Lab Space?
No.
Was
you
it
might
at
have
Red
saw
Room?
me in tape, but
I did see you in tape.
how we met and had our first conversation, we were playing the same character,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. So
But
at the school,
that was after tape, though.
it was after tape, but I don't think we had a chance to get to know each other.
Right. Okay, yeah.
But it was on set, right? And it was just like, oh, who is this, beautiful, older, talented Asian actress? And then how cool that I would get to play your ghost.
Yeah. Were you my ghost or no?
I was your
my younger self.
Younger self, but I was just a hallucination. Do you remember this?
I don't remember if it was a hallucination. Was it a hallucination? Oh, yeah, of our husband.
Yes.
At the time.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I always kind of thought I don't know what I thought about it. All I know is that.
Because we never got to see the final.
Yeah, we never got to see the final, and I actually had a very small parts in it compared to what you had, and yeah, that's right.
But it was So I think even that first sort of chance of meeting you and seeing, hey, this is beautiful, like Asian female actress, yay, who speaks English, right?
Yeah.
Because sure, there is the community, the market of like Cantonese films or Chinese films, but in Taiwan it's like it's either very Taiwanese or very Mandarin.
Yeah.
Right, but if you're kind of in the more English speaking or even ABC realm, you just don't have as many opportunities.
Exactly. The opportunity's not here.
I'm
always hoping that there's going to be projects that come in or that are international projects. And I think for us, it would be more international projects that we could work on to fit our characters and things like that.
Right.
Which, like you said, there's far and few in between.
Right. But also like banking on like if projects come through Taiwan, just that is hard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
and then if you don't live at a place where you're going to be able to just, go to auditions all the time, right? It's hard, honestly.
Yeah. I actually am just thinking about that, whether Taiwan is the place where I can become or work more on my acting, and because honestly, for my age, and my Mandarin is not totally fluent either. I mean, I'm a lot better at it than I was 10 years ago when I first moved here. But there's still always that accent, and so the types of characters that I can play.
Gets limited.
Yeah, gets limited. I mean, you can do,
and it's such a pity.
Yeah,
honestly. Yeah.
So the thing is that okay, at this time in my life or whatever, would it be worth it to go back to the States and then I'd have to start all over there in LA or something like that? And is that a step that I've wanted to take? And I've actually contacted agencies back in the States, but it's because of the location. Even though I'm very willing to fly over, if I make a callback, because the video audition tapes now, you can audition from everywhere,
right? Yeah.
But the fact that even if I'm willing to do that, they'd rather have you kind of there, so they're not necessarily wanting to really represent you unless you're somebody really big,
right?
That lives abroad. But the acting thing, and the training and the practice, I think it's such a learning experience, just how I can see myself through how I change, not even just in acting, but in my own life, in terms of Meisner teaches you to be
Yes.
present, you know,
Yes.
pay more attention
Yeah.
to your surroundings and things like that. And it's really valuable in everyday life too.
Yeah.
You know, and I was just thinking when you were talking about, even when you were in junior high school and you were huddling under this jacket and you were daydreaming and stuff, and I'm thinking perfect for Meisner because they're
Yeah.
talking about how important imagination is and dreaming and manifesting what you dream.
Right.
And unfortunately, I think a lot of people don't do that.
I was so shocked. You know, when we had to do the daydream practice, I was like, really, we have to practice this? You know, and then I look around the room, I'm like, man, I already had like daydreams about every single person. You know, I know that you have this other life, but yeah, I just imagined that you were this other character doing this other thing. And it was Martin who pointed out, I think he's like, I think for you, you are, you know, the exception here.
daydreamer,
Yeah, it's not actually that
No
common.
problem.
But yeah, I spend a lot of time.
I don't know. I guess for us, you have more opportunities. I think just because of your age, your age range. But sometimes, you know, a lot of times I hear people that come to Taiwan, they just do their own projects.
Yeah,
It
I
just
think
has
that's
to be right.
that's what ends up happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, and quite a few of my projects have been like just gathering the right people, or honestly, like none of the projects you do are gonna necessarily like are not gonna be money making projects.
You
right?
never
So-
know. Submit it to
I'm
a,
not
a
quite
festival
there
or
yet.
something like that, you know, and then, you know,
But
yeah.
even I mean, I haven't done a lot of my own where I like launched it, but I had this obsession with the play Closer
Yeah.
that I
Yeah,
had
I
picked
saw
up,
it. Yeah.
right? That I had picked up in college, and I had loved the movie, and I was like, damn, this is actually a play, and it's a script, and this is such a good script. And then just knowing, hey, we have this, it is small English speaking community of actors that we can do something. And could we have done it bigger? Could we have actually acted it versus stage reading, right? Sure, we can. Did I have the money and time for that? No.
Yeah.
But I got a taste of it, you know?
Yeah, but people with the same passion as you know, never know.
Yeah,
you know,
it's
what
so
people are
important to
willing
surround
do.
yourself with
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, because you spearheaded that pretty much. I mean, I
Yeah.
know it was with Stuart, but you're
Yeah.
the one that wanted to.
I want to do the
something
script and I'm going to
that's
pay
just
for the rights. Let's
amazing.
do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing too. I feel like when we are passionate about something, or we think about something, or want to do something, just do it.
Yeah, and it was
And
so
you were able to do it.
satisfying.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just
I think a lot of people that do that, they don't take that last step to do it.
No.
And so kudos to you. I think that is so cool. And I just didn't even know that you were a singer or a songwriter actually until recently. And I listened to you had an album that you put out in 2020, was it?
I have one in 2020 and one in 2022.
One, okay, so the one Wallow World.
Wallowland.
Wallowland.
Yes.
Okay, now wallow, does that mean what I think it means?
Like wallowing in your like misery.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
it is. So
Yeah.
when you put that first series of songs out, were you just wanting to get rid of stuff by bringing these things out that you wallowed in? I mean, I didn't listen to all your songs, but I mean, what was the reason for that?
I think that's pretty accurate. A lot of those songs were songs that I had written maybe further back or even in like a time of turbulence. And so more of those are like real, the inspiration comes from like very real experiences. And as artists, you know, I'm a person who feels very deeply and I get all romantic and poetic about it. And so that's how the lyrics, you know, fall into place. And then the second one, the EP called Maladjusted Daydreamer, which is actually a phrase, it's a thing.
Maladjusted Daydreamer.
Yeah, that was after Meisner.
Okay.
And so some of those scenarios are not real. They're imagined and they were very fun to write, but they're still like very sad, or they're very, you know, they're very real to me, right? But actually the scenario isn't real. but it's daydreamed.
Oh, that's interesting.
And so that was a real, it was a
Yeah.
neat transition.
Yeah.
And I think if I can feel like I've just finished this art show, right? And I'm doing this script analysis class. And I can feel like that, like, singer-songwriter side, like, getting ready. It's like, all right, you know, I'm here. You want to write some songs? You haven't touched your guitar in a while. Yeah. So I feel like that's what it comes down to, being an obsessive creative, just like being open to all these different creative expression and sharing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's really important too, because you said you're starting to feel it. Things are coming up, and listen to ourselves. You know, to allow what we're thinking or what we're feeling to come out.
Yeah.
You just mentioned your art exhibition that I went to was in November, and it was about words, or and I remember asking you at the time, because all your artwork had words on it, which had a lot of different meanings to you. And I remember I asked you which one that you thought really identified with it most, and you chose one of the paintings, and that was, do you remember?
Is it the yellow one?
Yes.
That we're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. I called that Pourquoi. Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that was the one that I had made most recent, like just before the show went up. It's like, hey, you know, let me get one more painting in. And Pourquoi means why not in French. And I studied French in high school and a little bit in college, and I suck at French.
Me too.
But do you like
you can hear it, you can understand some, but you just can't can you? I don't know.
Yeah, I can read the soap ingredients and you know, because a lot of it's written in French.
Yeah.
And that's how I practice my French. I'm like looking at the back of shampoo bottles.
Okay, I don't go that far.
Yeah. So in some ways, my French is so bad that it's like a secret language to me. So I will write in my journal sometimes, because my kids are getting old enough to read. Right? They're old enough to read. But
you don't want them to look at your journals and be able to read?
I'll write either in cursive, which they can't quite read, or I'll write in broken French, which only I can read, right? I mean, they're not curious about my journal at all, or my sketchbook, you know. Yeah, but just in case, you know, if I'm venting about them, they don't need to read that. But I've always just had this love for French.
Yeah.
So I worked that in. But coming back to that piece, it's really this, you know, I've hit my 40s, and it does feel like I'm very thankful that I'm not, you know, this young, reckless, emotional mess as much, and that I am like wiser, I think, wiser and kinder. Not perfect, but there's also that sense of, man, like time is really precious, and if I want to do things, like all my creative outlets, I got to do them. And if I want to be nice to someone, I need to do it now. And like that idea of just, why not try different things? Why not come to Sharon's show? Why not, like, you know, do this painting? Why not hold a exhibition? Why not join a class? Why not so many things? And it was also, we were talking about scarves before the show. I had been helping my mom, who's from this very frugal generation where they hoarded stuff, right? They had very scarce resources. And I was helping her clean the house, right? And I always do this when I go home. I'm like, why do we have so much stuff? Why do you have so much stuff? It's like, look at all these really nice scarves that are still in the packaging, and you never wear, and you're like in your 70s now, like, when are you going to wear them, you know? And she's always, since I was young, she would say, like, oh, you know, 舍不得用. So like, it's just too precious to be used.
Yeah.
Right? And then I clean out her candles, and we have 20 candles that 5 have been singed.
Right.
You know, and if you're never going to like light your candles, so there's really me as this daughter generation at this age. Like, I don't want to look at my scarves 30 years later and haven't
never
touched
worn
them, right? So
right.
I try to, like, why not wear this today? Why not dress up for sure. And why
Yeah.
not? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That attitude.
Why not? I think that's a really, really valid thing. I mean, even the things that I have in my house, which I brought back from the States every time I go back there, but it's still not very much. There's still things that I haven't worn or something like that. I'm thinking to myself, give them away. Why?
Right.
But then fashion comes back. No.
Yeah, yeah. And there's always that sentimental.
Yeah. So yeah, why not? Really, honestly, because I think a lot of times when people don't do things,
They
not just about scarves or anything like that, but it's just it's like out of fear, maybe out of self-confidence, out of losing face, out of doing a lot of things, and that keeps us back from so many things. So why not just do it? I mean, when you're saying you're 40s now, do you feel that you're old or getting, I mean, at the age or not yet, right?
It's more like physically sometimes. You know, like I feel the pain more.
Ah, okay.
And so I noticed I need to take care of my body more.
Yeah.
Yeah. That I can't get away with things that I could, right, when I was in my 20s.
So it's like awareness again.
But I think in my mind, and I think this is like an artist thing. Maybe this is favoritism, but I do think like artists and people who work with young people, they get to stay young, you know, because like if you're constantly curious and you're creating like that. So no, I don't feel old. I'm happy with my age.
Your age,
I know that the industry for acting, you know, is not as kind, but I do, but you know, for me, it's a little bit like, screw it, just, it's okay.
Yeah, I think maybe it's like a cultural thing, because I was just talking before another time, and I was talking about my niece when she hit 40. She's Taiwanese, and she just thought that she's old already, you know? So it's the perception.
I think it's a mindset.
Yeah.
I think
And is it because you feel like you've had the American Western type of thinking?
I think there's that.
Yeah.
And I think there is
just the fact you
being
work
an
with
artist.
kids, being an artist. Yeah.
I work with teenagers, and I would say they keep me young.
On your toes.
Yeah, and my kids even more so. Although I can feel the oldness when I'm trying to like pick them up, you know, because I'm trying to see the day when I can't lift them.
Oh,
you know,
no.
where they just get too heavy or I get too old. One's gonna happen first, right?
Yeah, I was in one of the commercials that had to do about a grandma lifting up their kids, you know, and there's all this medicine that people have to take now. But, you know, you mentioned about your kids a lot. You're married for how long now?
9, 10 years.
10 years?
Yeah.
And is he American or is
He's
he?
Israeli.
He's Israeli.
Yeah,
okay,
so very
interesting.
different cultural background than Taiwanese.
Did you meet him here or
Here,
back in the...
Here. Yeah.
Okay, and you're just talking about the different background with Taiwanese.
Like Israelis are very direct.
Yeah.
And they'll say exactly what they're thinking. And I think for Asians, that people-pleasing side, like it took us a while to more to
be able to communicate.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think just honestly, I keep coming back to Meisner because I feel like that's helped me communicate better. So that what I'm expressing or showing on the outside actually matches with what I'm thinking. And then there was probably like a 过渡期 of like, all right, being so expressive and then also learning to be, you know, kind and polite and within society, but still being honest. You know?
You have to tell yourself to be honest and polite within society.
Sometimes.
Did you get that one?
No, well, I think it's also like, I think, did this happen for you like after Meisner or like during Meisner where you extra 暴躁 extra
in public
or in relationships?
Oh, Well, I'm not in a relationship right now, so
Okay.
no, I've not really had that. And family doesn't
I'm
really count on
curious.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because when I was talking to Martin, our teacher, right, he had also mentioned in the past when he was going through Meister training that like it was a strain. And I remember the first day when we got into class, he's like, "This will change you. Be ready." You know, and then I was like, "Really? Okay." And then, but communication is always helpful, right, between people and especially in couples. And so I think I'm actually able to express my needs better, right? Coming back to that. And why do I or did I suck at it so much? Probably going all the way back to my childhood, and so all of that, I don't think that at 30 or at 20 I would be able to appreciate or be able to do, right? To grow from that. So I like being at this age. It's okay.
I think also being women in terms of communication, I mean,
Yeah.
being able to speak our needs. A lot of times we think that people know what we're thinking, especially if it's a spouse or something like that.
Right.
And but they don't.
Right.
They don't. Going back to so being able to express in a positive way, in a
manner that they can hear.
Yes, that's what you're talking about in terms of manner. Yeah. So that's great. So it's been 10 years that you guys married. You guys are really good with this intercultural marriages. And you just mentioned, you're Taiwanese. When you're saying Taiwanese or Asian, so you're really identifying more with that rather than being American. Is that right? Even you have both passports.
Well, I have an American passport. My Taiwanese passport's like super old. But I do, maybe because I've lived here so long, really like right after college. And so I know that a lot of my thinking isn't quite the same as local Taiwanese might be, but I feel close to them because I have a lot of cousins that are local Taiwanese. My sister, most of her schooling's been Taiwanese. And so I've experienced it. So I do identify with that more. And it's not always great to identify as American. So I appreciate that I've had that schooling from both sides, that I get to work in a place that appreciates the Western education philosophy more. But yeah, and I think the more that I learn about my own Taiwanese roots, there's like pride in that. Oh, coming back to like why I felt the need to be cool. I think because I grew up with that. I just grew up with that like Asian nerdy stereotype.
Yes.
And so I wanted to break that. So oftentimes, even like going to Australia, I felt like I needed to show this cool Asian American girl just to break that idea of Asians are always nerdy.
Yeah.
Asians always do, I think there's been that. I don't know where it came from. Maybe it was the days in Houston.
I mean, it has to definitely to deal with your identity and your self-confidence.
Yeah, right? Or maybe my parents, maybe I could sense it or see it that they were considered the very nerdy Asians,
Yeah, and you just didn't want to be that.
Yeah, or I wanted to be a nerdy Asian that was also cool. Because I'm very nerdy. And I love it.
Nerdy as in, because you do art, you sing, that's not nerdy things,
Yeah, but I also like love books.
Okay.
And I.
Yeah, but just because you love books, I mean, we're one of those kids that when we were younger, we went to the library every Saturday, public library to get some books. And I love fantasy, science fiction type of things.
But see, most of the nerdy Asians, that's what they're reading. They're not reading science, they're reading fantasy, right? But no one's bothering to ask them.
Yeah. Really? There's other people that read fantasy?
I think so.
Science fiction? Yeah. Well, because the mixed fantasy science fiction thing was always really cool. But I like more fantasy than science fiction kind of stuff. But So with the identity thing that we're talking about, you have two kids who are biracial now.
Yeah.
Are there any challenges or that you've seen in terms of parenting differences between what your husband thinks or what you think?
There's definitely like compromise that we both have to make, but I think, part of why we work is like how we spend money is pretty similar, and then how like we're both kind of frugal, but also we enjoy life probably more so than our parents' generation. Like they've, had very little and they really like they don't mind suffering. It's very strange, right?
Yeah.
And we both make
No judging because we didn't go through that, right?
I know. Well,
Yep.
this is me unpacking.
But right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but true.
Yeah.
That's true though. Yeah.
Yeah. And so a lot of, I think we both, will buy things for our parents so that they can enjoy life more. So I think that helps when you're trying to run a household together. For parenting, I think how we parent our kids fits with like they're able to go to the American school. It fits that. So I would say I like to think that they're thriving. Yeah. Sometimes it's hard when they want to play with locals at the playground because they're Mandarin. It's probably, my fault, but their Mandarin they're not confident enough. So they sometimes get a little bullied at the playground because, locals will make fun of them or say something and they won't be able to talk back, a little bit. Yeah.
Because they're so adorable. They both have very curly hair.
Yeah.
And I always thought that for Hapa kids, like we would say in Hawaii, which is half kids, that because they can speak English, that they kind of stand out as in, somebody that's cool. But you're saying that that's not really the case for them they're more laughed at or because they can't.
In
bullying
the
is
local,
everywhere.
yeah. In the locals, they're not necessarily going to think that. Their parents might think it's cool. That, hey, that kid, like, he speaks such great English. But I think as a kid, you just feel like I'm being compared.
Yeah.
That's annoying. Yeah.
Yeah. So for you as a mom, if you see that, what is it? How do your kids ever feel bad about it, and or have they ever said anything?
They're really good at telling us if something's bothering them. And so I feel like so far in that way we've been successful. And both my husband and I would say we're kind of quick-tempered. So we'll get riled up, but usually the moment's already passed,
Right.
We'll tell them, next time you tell them this, you got to remember these words. Or you come and tell us, right? And if in the moment would we actually say or do something, it's hard to say. But we're parents that like want to fight for our kids.
Yeah.
But I also want them to make friends with local kids too and feel comfortable. Yeah.
So you don't like try to have them learn Chinese.
They learn it at school.
At the American school.
At the American school. But let's say it's, an hour every day. Right? And I speak it with them at home so they can understand almost everything. But in the moment, because they don't speak it themselves as much, it's like harder to defend yourself. Yeah.
So, you have two kids, you're married, you teach. You're the art department chair.
Not anymore.
Oh, not anymore.
Yeah,
okay.
I've stepped down from that.
Oh, is that just recently?
This is my second year not being.
Oh, okay.
But I was there for 8 years. That's like an Obama term. That's enough.
An Obama term. Yeah. And with art, and you took classes like with Meisner was very, very time consuming. You have to really commit a lot.
Yeah.
How did you handle all of that? Because for me, even just we're talking about Meisner, and I took the 1 year. I don't have a full-time job. I'm not a mom. I'm not married. It was hard. So did you have How did you balance?
Remember going back to that obsessive part? This is where it kicks in. I was probably a little spread thin, but when I was department head, or currently, I only teach. I'm not full time. I teach I'm a part time, but like 80% part time.
Ah, okay.
So I'm mostly part time, but I basically just realized it was too much, and I made that adjustment, and then I can feel great about just leaving school, going to the museum, leaving school, coming to this, and honoring my artist side, and having the extra time, just the extra brain space. I feel like creatives, they need time to just be mellow and wallow and let creativity happen. And it's really hard if you have a full-time job or kids that are really noisy.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely not juggling it perfectly. I know this whenever I lose it with my kids. Like, okay, I'm probably too tired. I'm probably, but it's really hard for me to say no to things that are fun and creative. And then when I'm not doing a project, I usually miss it and I want to create something. Yeah. So I don't have a good answer for you of like how to juggle it, but I almost never regret like things that I get involved in. Yeah. So it's like if I'm going to do something, I want to do it well.
Right.
Yeah.
So art then, because I often wonder, I always thought to myself, okay, I love acting, I love singing. I mean, not to create albums, but just
But maybe
singing
you
and
should.
things. I know. We're just thinking that, but acting and singing, I really enjoy doing. And I always in my head thought, I can't do art. I'm not a good artist. Or like a lot of my friends now that are older, they write. They're starting to write creatively and stuff. And I never really wanted to write because I had to do a lot of writing for work. And and just the fact that now I'm feeling like there's a little switch in my head where if we don't have these negative talks to ourselves about certain things, for me, I'm not allowing my creativity to go full bloom like what you've been doing. I'm just starting to do some of that. And
how's it been?
It's good because it really, especially I'm taking this one class that was, art, doing some silly things, but and it's always the pressure. Oh, do I do this? And the teachers are like, oh, I have kids
What
that
class
do this.
Is it?
It's actually one of the ones my sister had introduced me to, and it's one of the government subsidized ones.
Okay.
And so this particular one, we did a lot of not charity things or fun things, but we helped paint or contribute to artwork to public places. To make them beautify them.
That's beautiful.
Like little things.
That's so awesome.
Like that. But it's always, I don't know if I'm doing it right. And like I was saying, the teacher is saying, oh, I have kids that just sit down and they just do it. Adults, they're just always worried about this and worried about that. But I find that when I'm just focusing on that, and I'm not paying attention to anything else, and it's just sort of like a meditation type of thing, and it just being present and just doing that.
Right.
It's such a satisfying feeling, really. So
I think I'm so glad you experienced that. I hope you experience it more. You give yourself the permission to.
Exactly. That's a permission kind of thing. You have a studio in your own house, or it's somewhere else?
I take over the art studio that I teach in.
Okay,
when
so
I'm
you're
not
separate.
teaching.
Yeah. I think
sometimes
that's really
on
cool.
The weekends. Sometimes, at night when the house is quiet, like I do have like my own little art corner, and it's like sacred to me. But yeah, it's important to give yourself the time and space to do that, and I think knowing that that's where you feel good, then like keep pushing it.
Yeah. Exactly.
I'm so happy
Always
to hear
goes
that.
towards, yeah, always
I want to
goes
like
what
see
makes you
your
feel
stuff.
good.
Yeah.
No, I've only got a couple little things, like this little rock that's a little fish.
That's great.
It's a
That's where you
very
start.
elegant fish, with
That's
eyelashes
beautiful.
and
Again, you're gonna
different
have to
color
show me. You
palette.
know, you're gonna have to show me, right?
I have to take a picture and send it to you.
Yes,
But
please.
so with all these experiences that you've had in 40 years of your life, is there any? I always say, oh, do you have a wow thing to share with us, a word of wisdom to share with us, whether it's, learning about yourself or discovering things or...
I would encourage people to just like live with curiosity or approach life with curiosity, because I think it, and maybe it comes back to that pourquoi of, see how far you can go with something, see how far you can take your rocks, right? Or it's like with relationships of, okay, I lost my temper there, but I'm curious if I can do this better next time around. Just to live life with curiosity and embrace, what comes your way, and be curious about, where things are going to go. And I think it makes life more interesting, and it raises your compassion for people and for nature. Just to be curious, like, why is something so beautiful? Why is something not working? Why is so many things, Yeah. So I've found that with that's probably how I've been raised. I've been talking to my dad recently, and I mentioned it to him, and he's like, yeah, that's the way, and we were talking about how him and my mom, they used to love just like going on these ridiculously long road trips, just
in
to
the
see
States.
in the
Yeah,
States,
yeah.
because you can
Where
do
you
that
can
in
do
the
that.
States.
Yeah.
Yes. And they would just go like national park hopping, basically, just to like be wowed, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
My parents took us to all of those too.
yeah, and now they still go on walks every morning, and they are always like my mom especially like keeps collecting, plants, shrubbery that she finds, and it's just constantly being curious.
Yeah.
And then I think that keeps you from aging, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, if you just want to keep learning.
Yeah, exactly. I always say learn something new every day. And it's amazing how many different things that you don't know that you learn. Like, with this podcast thing, oh my
Right.
gosh, I've learned so many different things
I'm
about
sure,
that. Yeah. But so, Michelle, do you have anything exciting that's coming up? Any projects that you can share?
I'm in my script analysis class.
Right.
So I'm not sure if we're going to like perform it or not. If we do, it'd be awesome, because this like script is so satisfying.
I think there is going to be a performance.
Yeah, you might know more than I do. Yeah.
Oops.
Yeah, but we haven't quite gotten casted yet. We're still like, yeah. So if that happens, I will let you know.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the most that's on the horizon right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then if people want to know a little bit about you, your artwork, your singing, where would they go?
I think Instagram is my like the one thing that I update more often. Mimi Cow 27. 27 is my birthday. That's where I would actually update things.
Okay.
Yeah, and then my music is available. Michelle Cow. And we keep coming back to like artist and Asian. I remember when I first put my music up, I was telling my friend, like, should I have an artist name? She's like, are you hiding? It's like, maybe maybe, like, because maybe Michelle Cow sounds too Asian, and people aren't going to want to listen to it. And then there was that turning point of like, you know what, I just got to own my name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that earlier too, because your husband's name is Sherman, right?
Yeah.
But you kept Cow. Is it because of the Taiwan Chinese Asian thing that you decided to keep your last name, or that's
I
just
think a little bit is just
Yeah.
me being lazy.
Okay.
I'm not gonna change my documents. Yeah.
Yeah,
if
that's
I'm
a
being
good thing
totally
because you know,
honest.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I think there was that transition of, yeah, I'm gonna own my name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is me, Michelle Cao. Yeah. I think that's really powerful, you know, if people can really own who they are and own their name and
their
names are very,
heritage.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you
Sharon.
so much for coming,
This has been so
Michelle.
fun. Yeah. Thank you.
And thank you, folks, for sharing this episode with us at Old Asian Lady. See you next time. Bye-bye.